Good evening, YouTube. My name is Luke, aka the Horror Nerd, and welcome back to Dread Central, the channel where some random Mexican guy with not very nice looking hair talks to you guys about horror games. So, it's been quite a while since my last discussion here on the channel. Some news first before I start. This will be the last discussion video here on Dread Central for a while, and this is not for a bad reason. Because the reason why is because I will be doing a marathon of all of Supermassive's games. This includes obviously the Dark Pictures Anthology series, Season 1, the Until Dawn remake, the Quarry, and from the world of Dead by Daylight, the casting of Frank Stone. I might stream these games, or I might just play them and record them, you know, each part individually. I'm not sure. Still kind of deciding on that part. But anyways, so this will be the last discussion here on the channel for a while, since I'm going to be busy with other stuff. There will not only be a walkthrough for all of Supermassive games, but there will also be a review for each individual game. So, yeah, we're going to be quite busy here on the channel. So, I'm going to have to take a break from the discussion videos for quite a while. So I hope you guys enjoyed this last one, because it's going to be the last one for a while. So, anyways, by reading the title, I am going to be talking about something that I feel like I am more than qualified to talk about. I feel like this is definitely a topic that I am very, very familiar with. So that's why I think I am qualified to talk about it. And if anyone else has made a video talking about this same topic, I apologize. I'm not trying to be a content thief. But anyways, not all that hooplas out of the way, let's just get straight into the topic, like the actual topic. Now, the first thing that I want to say is I feel like console gaming in general is kind of overhated nowadays. I mean, we live in a time where gaming on PC is the definitive experience to play video games. I want to make that perfectly clear. Console gaming will never, and I mean will never, ever be better than PC gaming. PC gaming was better from the beginning, and it will always be better till the very end. Okay, console is never going to be a better experience than PC. So, although PC gaming is definitely the better experience, just because it's the better experience, this does not automatically mean that console is a much worser experience. Like, when you compare console to PC, it's not like console is so much more bad in comparison that console is just a straight up bad choice when you are looking for a platform to play video games on. If you're the type of person that's not like an extremely hardcore gamer, and to be honest, even if you are, console gaming is really not all that bad compared to PC gaming. You know, like I said before, it's not so much worser to the point where it's just straight up bad in comparison. You know, console gaming may not be the best, and it's sure as hell not better than PC gaming. I cannot stress that enough. But it's still pretty good. You know, it gets the job done, and I'd say it's good enough for the minority of people that just want to sit back and play video games. So, what about for horror gaming? So, you know, this is what the this is what the video is about. When it comes to horror games, console gaming, I would say, is still a very minimum experience. It's the bare minimum, you know, and I would say it's still good enough. I've been playing on console now for pretty much my whole life, and it's definitely also gotten better. Like, if you compare the amount of horror games that we get now on console compared to PS4 and the Xbox One era, those consoles did not see a massive number of horror games. Especially like compared to nowadays. The PS5, Series X, and even PS4 and Xbox One are now getting a lot more horror games, and that's what this is mostly about. This is why this is even a topic to begin with. Does console even get enough horror games to be considered good? Because obviously, for horror fans like myself, you want to have a large variety and a large selection of horror games available on the console's library. And I am very happy to say that both Xbox One, Xbox Series X, PS4, especially PS4, and PS5 all get a great amount of horror games. I mean, the fact that even the PS4 and Xbox One are now seeing more horror games, it's a pretty great experience nowadays. You know, like, especially compared to now versus then, because I've been playing on consoles since 360, Xbox One, PS3, and PS4, and I can assure you that during the Xbox One and PS4 era, we did not see a massive amount of horror games on console like we do now. So it's a pretty good experience. You know, it's a night and day experience as well. You know, like, you're not going to be getting like thousands of horror games like PC gets, but what you will be getting is you will still be getting a pretty good amount of horror games available to you. I mean, even the Nintendo Switch gets a good amount of horror games, and if you have Steam Deck, then it's going to be even better, because you get most of the horror games that are on Steam, as long as they are not high demanding games like Alan Wake 2, which unfortunately still does not run on Steam Deck. But you know, if you're on Steam Deck, like, if that's your main platform besides PC or PlayStation or Xbox, it's a pretty good experience. But let's look at just console for a moment. So on console, like I said, the variety and the selection is what matters, and the horror category on the PlayStation Store, the Xbox Store, and even the Nintendo Store, like even on Nintendo Switch, there's a pretty good amount of horror games. For Nintendo Switch specifically, you've got the Resident Evil trilogy, you've got 4, 5, and 6, you've got the Resident Evil HD remaster, as well as Resident Evil 0, you've got the Outlast games, you've got Amnesia the Collection, Alan Wake, Alien Isolation, Bendy and the Ink Machine. I mean, the FNAF games, if you're more into the more jump scare fest horror games, as I like to call them. That's just on Switch. On PS5, PS4, Xbox One and Series X, obviously, if you're on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, you're going to have more horror games available to you. So we're going to stick to just those platforms for now, Xbox Series S included. The next generation of consoles does have a better library of horror games than the PS4 and the Xbox One has, as well as obviously the Nintendo Switch. On PS5 specifically, you're going to have a great variety of indie horror games, survival horror games, some hidden gem horror games, psychological horror games, action horror games like Ghostwire Tokyo, the newly released Slitherhead, Shadows of the Damned, which is another recent release. And this is another great thing about horror gaming on console. More newer horror games are releasing here on PlayStation and Xbox day one. These horror games only used to be on PC mostly, but even the indie horror games that would only be on PC are now getting day one releases on console. So the horror game experience has definitely saw some great improvements on console. And I want to talk about indie horror games specifically, and the reason why is because, for the most part, most of, if not all, horror games nowadays are made by indie devs. You're never going to see a lot of horror games being made by the bigger studios. And the reason for that is because a lot of the bigger video game studios don't really care about the horror genre that much. It's mostly the indie developers that make most horror games, and it's actually sad. The Dead Space franchise, for example, which is made by a AAA studio like EA, the Dead Space franchise has been put on hold because of how badly EA treats that franchise. So, it's sad, really, that indie devs show more love to the horror genre than the AAA studios. And what's even more sadder than that fact alone is the fact that indie devs have so much passion, creativity and originality for these games, which is why so many indie horror games are actually good. It's why it's indie horror games that make this such a great genre for us horror fans, because the indie devs who are actually fans of the horror genre themselves, which is why they are so experienced with making great horror games, they are basically the fans making the games for other fans. And it's unfortunate that it's the most creative developers that have the most little amounts of resources. Because obviously, a lot of indie devs don't have as much money as the AAA studios have, and that's actually the exact reason why PC gets so many more horror games than console does. You know, if indie devs had a lot more money than what they actually have in their banks, then I'm more than sure that Xbox and PlayStation would also be getting almost the same amount of horror games as PC does, because making a game in the first place cost a lot of money for these developers. So it's not just making the game that cost a lot, but then paying even more money to have the game put on console, ported to console. It costs even more money that they just don't have. So this is actually the exact reason why PC gets like way more horror games than console does. And, obviously, this is the reason why PC is better if you are a hardcore horror fan. If you're a casual horror fan that just likes to play horror games like during spooky season, then console gaming will most definitely be enough for you. Like, you're gonna have your typical stuff here. You're gonna have your Resident Evil, your Silent Hills, your Dead Space, your Outlast, your Alan Wake. You're gonna have all of that typical stuff. If you're just a casual who just wants to play some horror games around the holidays, console will definitely satisfy that itch for you. But honestly, even if you're a hardcore horror fan like myself who primarily plays horror games, like if you're like me and you primarily play horror games like 90% of the time, even then, console is still a pretty good experience, because like I said earlier, you're still going to be getting a pretty good amount of horror games on here. I have over 400 games on my PlayStation, and a massive chunk of those games are all horror. So, you are going to be getting not only a lot of horror games on console, but a very good variety of horror games as well. Like I said, you're going to be getting side-scrollers, indie games, action horror games, even got hidden gems here on console now. Like, there's I think I have about maybe 25 I would consider hidden gems on my console that most people, even horror fans, don't really know about. There's this one horror game called Rutin, I think you pronounce it. Most of you guys probably don't even know what it is. It's a fantastic indie horror game that a lot of people have not played yet, and it's on console. Even the hidden gem indie horror games are on console. So I cannot stress this enough. Horror gaming on console is a minimum but still good enough experience. And I say this because I think if you ask this question to someone who only plays on PC, and if they were a horror fan themselves, I feel like they would just be telling you that console is just not good enough. I'm a console gamer, so I'm going to be giving you both perspectives. Yes, you're going to be getting a better experience on PC. That is correct. You're going to be getting way more horror games than console gets. Despite the fact that console still gets a great amount of horror games, PC does still get a lot more. But on console, you still do get a good amount of horror games that will satisfy your cravings for horror games. So again, a PC player will probably just be telling you that console is just not good enough, but me, I for one know that console is good enough. Like when you compare console to PC when it comes to horror games, the experience is more than just decent, and it is not bad compared to PC to the point where PC is like just straight up better. Because although it is better than console, it's not better than console for the most part. Because console still gets enough horror games to be considered more than just decent or mediocre. It's good enough. It's minimum, but it's still good. So yeah, I would say that horror gaming on console, it's a very good experience, especially if you're on PlayStation and even on Xbox. And I say this because you even get the classic horror games. You get some older PS2 horror games on PlayStation 5, like Ghost Hunter or Siren. And then on Xbox, you've got classics like Condemned Criminal Origins, Left 4 Dead, the original Dead Space trilogy. So you even get the classics. You even get the classics. There's this one horror game that I forgot the name of. It's known as the best worst game ever. I forgot the name of it. Not that it's a forgettable title or anything. I just forgot the name because I have a bad memory. But yeah, I would say that horror gaming on console, it's definitely good enough. Even if you're a hardcore horror fan that primarily plays horror games, your cravings will be satisfied on console. And the main reason why PC is better than console when it comes to horror games is because, yes, PC does get a lot more horror games. And, a lot of those horror games that PC gets that are only on PC, they are very good horror games. I will make that clear. They are very, very good horror games. PC's got the good stuff. PC has a lot of good stuff on there. There's plenty of horror games that are still only on PC, but one thing that I will say is that in most cases, when an indie horror game gets enough support and when the developer makes enough money and when the game gets popular enough, a lot of the times, those indie horror games that were only on PC, they do end up coming to console eventually. For example, Phasmophobia and The Mortuary Assistant, two very popular horror games that were only on PC for a very long time. Both of those games are now on PlayStation and Xbox. So, yes, it takes a while for these games to make it to console, but sometimes they do eventually end up on PlayStation and Xbox, and sometimes even Nintendo. The Mortuary Assistant actually came to Nintendo Switch before Xbox and PlayStation. So, although the PC experience is still better if you are a horror fan, a lot of the times, console is pretty good too. You're not going to be seeing every great horror game that PC gets, and you're not going to get every great horror experience that's only on PC, but console still gets a pretty damn good amount of horror games. You even got a good amount of multiplayer horror games on here too. You've got Outlast Trials, you've got Phasmophobia, which just came here, you've got Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, if anyone still plays that, Predator Hunting Grounds, which is hopefully not dead like every other asymmetrical horror experience out there. There's a good chance that even more horror games that were only on PC, there's a good chance that even they will come to console eventually, especially with how popular they get. Because when an indie dev makes enough money and when their game does get enough popularity and gets a much bigger growing fan base, they're going to want to expand what they've already gained on PC. Because when you have a large following for your game on PC, by putting it on console, you're just going to make even more money and gain even more popularity, and that is in the interest of most, if not all, indie devs. Even if they don't make horror games, like any indie dev will probably want that for their game. They're going to want more popularity, they're going to want more money, they're going to want more players. So I would say that console gaming is definitely worth it if you are a horror fan, whether casual, hardcore, or even both. You can be a casual and a hardcore all at the same time. That's what I am. Yes, I love horror games. That's what I primarily play. But, I am still a casual horror fan as well. I'm not trying to play every single horror game in existence. Although I would definitely like to. And let's be honest, I'm pretty sure most of us are going to switch to PC eventually. So that just makes console even more worth it in the meantime. It's a good enough experience for the time being, and whether how long the time being actually lasts. Like whether it's 1 year or 10 years. You know, console gaming will definitely satisfy you if you are a horror fan and if you want to play great horror games. So, to further prove my point, in the near future, I will be making a very large list of some of the best horror games available on PlayStation and Xbox. And the list will be pretty big, you know, because I'm trying to prove my point here that console gaming is no slouch when it comes to getting a large amount of horror games like PC gets. You know, that's the point I'm trying to make here, because console does still get a lot of horror games. Even if PC gets more, console gaming still has a lot to offer when you are a horror fan. So, yeah, like I said, coming in the near future, I will be making a list of some of the best horror games available on PS5, PS4, Xbox One, and Series X. Maybe even Nintendo Switch, if Switch gets more horror games, hopefully. But, yeah. Anyways, thank you guys so very much for watching. If you stuck by till the end, thanks. Obviously, that means a lot. And if you could help out by subscribing to the channel, spreading the word about my channel, since I am a smaller creator here on YouTube, that would mean a lot. I'll appreciate any support. You know, any support is obviously going to be appreciated. So I'm not ungrateful here. So yeah, and hopefully, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed the video, then that's enough right there, because that's all I'm trying to do here. I want people to enjoy my content more than anything else. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys so very much for watching. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next video here on Dread Central. Take care, y'all, and peace out.